All right, show me the money. NFL picks for week number 4 here on the podcast. Join me today to make our picks for the week here. A fellow disgruntled Jets fan, Martino Puccio, is here. Martino, how are you?
Well, yeah, you kind of summed it up, dude. Like, is there ever a happy time I join you? I feel like there isn't. I can't remember the last time. It might have been like when Cohen was announced as owner, or maybe we talked when Rodgers got traded. But it's never good vibes, man. I mean, it keeps getting worse by each week. Like you thought it was like done the second Rodgers got hurt, but like it just keeps snowballing into something worse every single week. And today is like another latest thing. So
In terms of positive, I think the last time it was really positive, I think was when Francisco Lindor got traded to the Mets. I think you were on for that.
yeah, no, I remember the Lindor trade because that one was kind of like the stamp. And I envisioned today us doing another one whenever Juan Soto gets traded. I just feel like honestly, I do think it'll happen. Um, and 500 million to Juan, but yeah, I mean, not much, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and today, I mean, the news today further solidifies my investment here. We'll get to that in a minute about why I think better giving money to Steve Cohen than Woody Johnson. So we'll get to that in a second here. But obviously, let's start with last week here. What a debacle last week was here. I mean, once again, it's another Patriot game where the Patriots look like dog shit. The Jets got 13 points and they get the ball to Zach Wilson not once, not twice, 3 times down the stretch, and he can't get them to win, which is incredible to watch.
I mean, even if you just took that sequence alone, how little they moved up the field
Yeah.
was just astonishing. Whether or not opponents are saying they're going to stack the box, just like Willie Gay was kind of alluding to on the Chiefs already for Sunday Night Football. This is really just those three possessions were a microcosm of everything else. We know how awful he is. He's one of the worst quarterbacks of all time. He's one of the worst draft picks of all time. No one has ever been this bad and ended up good,
Yeah.
ever. And not many people have ever been this bad. I mean, he's on track for the lowest passer rating for the third straight season. That would be the first time ever in NFL history. This is still a franchise that has failed to get a 4,000-yard passer in a season since Joe Namath, and Joe Namath was the first ever person to do that. So from the first person who could ever do something like that till now, the Jets have not had somebody. This is just everything that we know. And probably the worst part for me, the part that gets me most upset, is that it doesn't look like the guys in charge making the decisions to play Zach Wilson know what they're supposed to do. And I know there's comments already floating out there about Woody Johnson and what's going on over there and why the Jets haven't added somebody. To me, it's pretty ridiculous because even if we look at it underneath the scope of Rodgers returning next fall and he's healthy, this roster's still very young. That's why everybody had so much upside for them and the years of control and all of that. They got some good regular season experience last year. Unfortunately, key pieces got hurt. But you know what they need more than anything to know if that they can contend for a Super Bowl is if they get to the playoffs and play under that pressure. How does Garrett Wilson do? Brees Hall, Sauce Gardner, so many different guys that you have questions about. Quinnen Williams as well. Dude's never been on a winning team ever. It's in the NFL, obviously, but I mean, it's just pretty embarrassing as to how they let this go. There haven't been viable backups. I don't want to like talk about already what he said because you'll toss it to me, but I mean, yeah, it's as low as possible. Zero confidence in the quarterback, which is to me the bare minimum of what you need. Confidence and fundamentals. If you could make the simple passes, if you have that confidence, you're going to be okay. He has neither of those things. He can't read a defense. And almost every single time when someone's like, why does Zach Wilson stink? They toss a highlight up from BYU like it's the same thing as the NFL where he has zero pressure on him and he's just slinging the ball 60, 70 yards. And it doesn't really matter because you're not throwing to NFL defensive backs. It's embarrassing. If you haven't realized the player that he is at this point, like I've seen people say, I think I'm officially done with Zach Wilson. How have you not been done? 25 points to the Patriots the past 2 games, 25 points we gave up. And you didn't even mention the secondary players missing.
Yeah.
Like, what else do we have to do now? Because, sometimes I think the Jets fans have a propensity to give guys more of a leash, to give them more of a chance. they've never seen a quarterback good play well in a while. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, one season, whatever, we knew that was fool's gold. But to seriously have a consistent quarterback who isn't garbage has been a very long time. It's not even funny anymore because you can't even, like someone said, if Kirk Cousins came to this team and played football, everybody would think he's Jesus Christ
Yes.
because of how bad everybody else is. Like Kirk Cousins, for all his faults, for all he does in primetime games, his record, I mean, is leaps and bounds statistically the best Jets quarterback ever. So like if we go off of the name of stuff, it's totally different in that era. But that's what we're talking about here. Guys that like wouldn't even want Kirk Cousins would be the Jets' precious jewel. That's how dire that quarterback situation is now.
Yeah, it's certainly been a week. We kind of go through this week a little bit about the Zach Wilson stuff here. I mean, first off, Joe Namath comes out and just completely destroys Zach Wilson. I mean, he basically called out the play where he basically sat down, took a sack, and nobody was around him. Yeah, all the stuff saying like if the Jets keep going with him, that people should be fired here, and that he has a play that doesn't get coached. Like, and we've seen Joe Namath be like Mr. Pom Pom for the franchise here. Like,
True.
he went scorched earth on this quarterback, and this regime tells you how pissed off he is.
I mean, I find it really fascinating that this is the one that Joe blows up on. There's been other really bad situations, like team in general. Forget the quarterback spot. Like Namath, it's just like, rough season, rough this. Everybody's struggling. You know, like that's Namath. But this is like something else, and I don't want to hear from him because no one's ever gonna like tell him he's wrong or he should stop talking because he's the only thing people are proud of outside like Klecko, Darrell Revis, and Curtis Martin. I mean, a couple other guys like Gastineau, but there's nobody. There's not even a list of 10 players that can say whatever they want. As like Damian Woody's in that conversation, Mangold. The Jets don't have that type of winning culture. And that's another thing that like sort of matters to me, where you see a lot of the top NFL franchises don't give a damn where they pick in the first round. It's about building winning and getting into that process. And the Jets haven't done that in 13 years. And to just expect it to happen out of nowhere where the quarterback goes down, this was doomsday. This is why they didn't want Zach Wilson. But to not learn from last year's experience where he cost you a playoff appearance, was awful his rookie year. Statistically looking, if you go back and check his stats, his rookie year is by far his best. And it sucked. So, like, the completion percentage was the highest. It was 55%. 55%. That's so bad. And the fact that he can't even be like a happy gunslinger, he's like a gunslinger who has a safety on the whole time. Like it's useless. So, and did we mention the fourth down check down
Yeah,
pass that he had? Was it to Tyler Conklin to end the game?
yeah, it's
Who's scared?
it's a lot of stuff with that one. In terms of the coaching staff, too, we got to go there next. Obviously, Robert Saleh, for most of the week, has been going, he's our unquestioned quarterback. He's the guy. We've got to play better around him. And then, like, we have, like, the statements they're making. He finally yesterday said, Zach has to play better. It took him till yesterday to say this. And then you look
It's
at the
not
fact
even
that
bad.
it's like the defense is going to get pissed off saying, hey, we get 13 points to this team. Is our fault they're losing these games here? You see the blowups on the sideline here. It's like, this is something here, like, where I believe, I forget who said it on Sunday, but like Jim Nantz said it during the games, like,
Yeah.
the Jets can say all they want about how confident Zach Wilson is, and he can say, oh, this is the most confident I've been, but you watch the way they call the game and you watch the play calls they put out for him. They basically playing like, hey, do not fuck up, otherwise we will not win the game. And that's hard for anybody to do that, especially a guy who we know is not that great.
No, I mean it's like I was saying, it's a reflection of the head coach at this point. And that's really the damning part, which is for me harder to swallow as a fan because you thought at least Salah could be a leader of men. You know, X's and O's as far as they go. I mean, he runs a tight ship on defense. They're doing fantastic in that regard when they're not always on the field because the quarterback is awful. But in turn, that's also a reflection of his decisions. It's also a reflection of the owner and getting other pieces in here. Joe Douglas, that onus is on him at this point. Like it's, Trevor Siemian, practice squad. Don't want to give up an active roster spot. Tim Boyle's the backup. Did you actually see Tim Boyle's stats in college? Tim Boyle's stats are absolutely horrific, even worse than like Zach Wilson's in the NFL in college. That's who we have. I don't think Joe Douglas does a great job of identifying the quarterback situation. I think it's his one Achilles heel, but in turn, that just pretty much sums up this franchise. It's bad when your options are Flacco, when it's Matt Ryan doesn't even want to consider you. I wouldn't even have wanted Matt Ryan. That's kind of besides the point, but Carson Wentz, there's nobody. There's Jacoby Brissett. I know even before Derek Carr went down with the AC joint sprain, like Jameis Winston, something creative. Can we try? Can we do something? Because even like last year as well, Strevler, horrendous, burning mid-round picks on James Morgan, who couldn't even stay on the roster afterwards. You know, he gets credit because he found Joe Flacco. He found a good deep ball thrower that was like a competent team and knew how to build around a quarterback. He doesn't know how to do that with this. It's really bad because the offensive line as well. Joe Tippmann, awesome that he got the highest Pro Football Focus grade last week. Horrible because he's playing guard and he's a center, and it took until another makeshift offensive line. There are serious issues, which also don't help the quarterback. It's just they have to get continuity in there, and they can't just be using guys that are old or over the hill. It's really a poor situation. They're not doing any right by Zach, and I think also with this locker room right now, it's not so much that the players are against Zach. I think it actually comes down to them being more angry at the head coach, who's still putting him in these situations where he's clearly telling you he's not capable of doing it. The body language, the statistics, the tape, it doesn't matter who's watching this. They could tell you how disastrous it is. And by not making a move, you're effectively ruining a lot of good that was happening earlier in the season. Because again, the defense played phenomenal. They didn't step up against the Cowboys. It was, disheartening in a way to see them not get pressure, but it's a snowball effect. Seasons can spiral out of control fast, and this franchise has seen that with poor quarterback play. And that's a real possibility within Sunday night,
Yeah,
honestly, like this
yeah,
soon.
yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely a risk of a locker room mutiny happening here. I mean, it took one last year basically to get Wilson benched the first time from Mike White, and if you look at what's happening here, I mean, you see the blowups on the sideline with Garrett Wilson yelling at Hackett and Michael Carr yelling at the running backs coach. I mean, like this is a point where Sal's coming out saying these things like, these we have to be better around him. And like, how you ask the defense to be that much better? Pitch a shutout? Like you
They
can't,
can't. They
you can't.
can't.
And to me, that's the point where you look at it and it's like you lose locker rooms that way when you're basically putting Zach on a pedestal above everybody else and saying like, if anybody else in the league played like this, they would have been benched, but he's getting protected.
Yes, and nobody knows why. Maybe it's because Salah has more patience. I don't really know. I find it to be really frustrating. And again, it's just endless cycle of rookie head coaches that are defensive minded signing up for the Jets job that are probably weighing over their head when it comes to that. Bulls is like that. They hire, the fakest and biggest jabroni offensive guru to ever live in Adam Gase. And like they revert back to this. It's all cultural. It's all the owner. Nothing changes until he sells. It's the only thing that matters. And anyone pretending otherwise, like I even bought in for this season. Rodgers is a little different. I think Douglas is competent, but this is the reminder of what's happening right now, where you have the power to change something, and if you're not willing to do it, then you're not who you say you are, and that's an owner who's ambitious and wants to win. I think it's just completely fugazi. I think he's hiding behind that Aaron Rodgers injury, and to be quite honest with you, with the way the NFL is and the way it's shaping up this year so far, there is a possibility that they could have made a run. You're telling me that Kirk Cousins getting them into the play, like something, it gives you something. You have to try. You do not know. You do not know until you try, and they're not even trying, and that's the worst part. They'd rather do this. You know what also that signal sends as well? Free agents in the future. Why would they want to come here if this is how the franchise is run? Like, where's that kind of stability? And if it's all hinging on a guy, by the way, even if he does come back, even if Rodgers does play well, it's for a year. It's the year you're lucky if it's past that at this point because of the injury. So then you're back to page one and step one. So it's really bad. It's really bad. They have to bench him. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to be the worst primetime game since the butt fumble. It's going to be that bad. People need to be prepared for that because they're going to have tons of touchdowns. Chiefs are going to blow them out. We'll get into that. And then Taylor Swift is just going to be all over the place. And it's just going to be everybody dancing on the Jets' grave once again.
Yeah, and in terms of the owner here, before we get to the Chiefs here, the reports coming out today was specifically from Josina Anderson, the NFL insider. They said that the Jets have not made a bigger investment at quarterback than a practice squad player because Woody Johnson's not has budgetary concerns because they've already spent $280 million in cash on this roster. As before Rodgers got hurt, we've heard the report from Brian Costello in the New York Post that they offered guys practice squad spots, and that's why Colt McCoy didn't come here because he did not want to be on the practice squad. It's like Trevor Simeon's the pickup here. To me, Woody Johnson again proving he's the biggest fraud owner in this market because he's the guy talking all about like, come see the Jets, we're the big thing, like get the new uniforms, buy your tickets, and then the second that Rodgers got hurt, it's like, oh, hold the purse strings away. Like, why would you ever give your money to this man if you're a fan?
It's why I don't buy jerseys and go to games.
Yeah.
You were lucky to get me to MetLife last year. Not you, my friends. Like that's the last game I'm gonna go see at MetLife until he sells the team. I'm not going back. They don't deserve that. This is just a disaster. I think it's a great time to sell, by the way. The Commanders just won for $6 billion. He could possibly get up to $8 billion. Just take the money. You're in your 70s. Buzz off. It's a disaster. You don't know what you're doing. Like, this was his last chance. Because now at this point, if it doesn't work out with Rodgers, probably not because of everything that has transpired. It would really be a miracle. He's probably going to end up firing Douglas if they struggle next year as well. Probably going to fire Saleh. And Douglas is the only competent guy that has walked through that door. Who wants to work for Woody Johnson anymore? Who would want to do it? Who are we going to get that's a top tier candidate? You just don't get that. Like, David Stearns wouldn't have gone to the Mets under the Wilpons. Just like the Jets are not going to get, I don't know, someone hopeful, ambitious, someone that knows what they're doing in terms of football, or hiring guys that know football and staying out of their way, and worried about things on the field instead of off the field. It's just not going to change. And anyone else believing in that is just fool's gold. And again, you're not less of a fan because of that, by the way. You still root for your team, you watch the games, but they don't deserve your money and your time and your attention if this is what they do. Because it's just, I think it's a slap in the face to the fans. And secondly, we all know how much the NFL makes in terms of money. I don't give a shit if you spent $280 million. Super Bowl's on the line. And you know what? Puts more money in your pocket if the Jets are good. So get a quarterback to make them good. Otherwise, sell the team. Simple.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, like, this is a team that literally, like, it's also a slap in the face to all the guys in the room, too, who, like, yes,
Exactly.
you're not winning with Rodgers, your chances go from here to here of winning a Super Bowl with him. But, like, as we said many times, the talent of this roster deserve better than Zach Wilson as their option. Somebody should be in that building the second that Rodgers got hurt, learn that playbook, not wait until week 4.
I just don't understand how even not trying to trade for Kirk Cousins is just beyond them. To me, it's just funny. I'd do it. If they say they want a third, send them a third for the season. I don't give a damn, man. You know what matters? Trying to go for the Super Bowl. And if that gives you a really damn good shot, okay, you did well enough. You got that playoff experience. You went deep because of that. You never know what could happen. I mean, are we serious here? Nick Foles won a Super Bowl with a good enough team. Plenty of good quarterbacks have won, or not great quarterbacks have won Super Bowls. And even during some mediocre seasons for some. All you need to do is just execute come postseason. And I don't know why people wouldn't even want to bother like trying with Kirk Cousins. Like, I think he deserves a shot like that. In all honesty, if you look in hindsight, like what kind of teams has he expected to have won? Their defense was also awful last year. Sorry. So like to get out coached like that against the Giants, like it made sense. That was just an overachieving team. I thought they did poor offensively like Kirk was, but a lot of the times we saw how dysfunctional Washington was, not all on him. And I think a lot of fans were like, oh, well, he's not that great. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just funny to me. And I don't care about bruising Rodgers' ego because you know what's more important than Aaron Rodgers? The New York Jets. Okay. That's the priority that every fan should have, is that this team is in the best position to win a Super Bowl. And if that means whatever, we get a quarterback that isn't Aaron Rodgers for this season, like who cares? Why? Because we're going to burn a 3rd-round pick and Rodgers might get upset that we used an asset that could have helped the team for next year. It's about this year too. There's no guarantees. We just saw what happened 4 snaps in, and we're doing this. It's embarrassing. They don't care about winning. Well, the owner doesn't.
Yeah, and this week, guys, big time embarrassing potential for them because the first Sunday night game they've had in over a decade here. They have the Chiefs coming in here. Now it's even more people watch it because all the rumors are out the Tails to come show up and watch this game in person. And price in secondary market started to skyrocket here. So it's just
some people made their money back, dude.
Yeah.
Like that don't want to go to that game.
Yeah,
they're Taylor Swift fans. Good on them.
Yeah, which I still don't understand, by the way, like how you're spending money to watch a football game in the hopes you see her in her suite. Like that seems stupid to me.
It's a cult, I guess. I don't know. They call themselves Swifties. It's just there's no other explanation to give a shit enough about someone's personal life. If it's like a concert, all right, whatever. Still wouldn't spend the amount of money that I've seen people spend. No offense, Stanko, at all. But like if you're a fan, super fan like that, to go see her in concert. But I highly doubt like Stanko is going to be tossing like $600-$700 to try and get to the game. But yeah, man. I mean, listen, it's I'm telling you, they're gonna dance on a great, like it's still Mahomes and Kelsey and that entire like play. Like Chris Jones is gonna eat them alive. It's just gonna be so bad. But I have Kelsey on one of my fantasy teams, so you know what?
Yeah.
Take it, I guess.
Yeah, take the Taylor Swift angle out. That's all the casuals that care about, and all NBC will care about. There'll be a lot of Taylor Swift cameras, I'm sure, dedicated during this game. I think this game goes one of only 2 ways. I think one is the more likely, as you said, that this could be like another Cowboys game where it's 30-10, and that they're just dumping touchdowns to Kelsey so they can get Taylor Swift shots, and then the Jets get embarrassed on TV. The other
Well, I mean, it's huge for the brand. I mean, he like 400% increase in jersey sales for Kelsey, and then again, I like it's so funny how people don't understand how broadcast. They're like, why are they switching the camera to Taylor Swift? It's like because everybody tuning in mostly or wants to see her, so you have to put it on. Otherwise, guess what? They stop watching. That means the network makes less money. Oh,
Yeah.
like why are they so surprised by this? It's basic logic. I don't know. It's funny, but always at the expense of the Jets. So it's never Taylor Swift dating one of our guys, but oh well. And even if they did, it would probably be like, when Sam Darnold gets like mono or something.
Yeah, so that's option one. Like I got a 95% likelihood of happening that this game's a 30-10 disaster again. So that's option one. The other 5% is, maybe by some miracle the Jet fans get lucky here and that they actually try and do something different than run, pass on offense, and this game is close to the 4th quarter. The Chiefs still win. That's the way that's the only 2 options I see here.
I think you need to go lower than 5%. I think you need to go to like 1.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'm giving the defense a little respect here. That's why I'm giving them a 5.
I respect them, but I also respect Mahomes more. No disrespect to this defense. It's just Patrick Mahomes is something else. And again, Wilson starts turning it over in that sense. You know what I'm saying? Like then the defense, like body language, when like you think offensive lines don't really try and block for certain quarterbacks. It just feels like the defense doesn't really want to give that same level of effort, which is daunting, but we'll see.
Yeah, of course, the first time the Jets are on NBC in like a decade, you can't even enjoy it.
Well, I mean, listen, we knew this is what would happen the second that he went down.
Yep.
Literally. Like some people are just like, oh my God, why is this happening? It's like, well, because Rodgers got hurt. This is why. Yep. You should have known that. But yep.
Let's get the reason why you're here, which is the NFL picks of the week. Our good friend John Stanko was here last week. He did the picks. He went 2-1 on his picks. You can see on the screen here. He had the Bills laying 6.5 against the Commanders. They won running away. He had the Chiefs laying the 12.5 against the Bears before even knew Taylor Swift was going. So he got that one easy. He had the Rams +2. They gave it a hard fight. They lost. So 2-1 for Stanko last week.
Yeah, pretty good job by him. Can't blame him on the Rams pick either. And then, it just happens. That was a very odd game and, pretty decent number considering Burrow might have not had played at that point. He clearly wasn't 100%. But yeah, gotta say, good job by both of you.
Yeah, my Hicks. I also went 2-1 on the week here. I had the Dolphins laying the 6.5 points. That's my lock of the week. They obviously know what they did, so that one was over for me in the first quarter. I had the Lions laying the 3 against Carolina. They won that game. I had the Cowboys laying the 12, and I don't know what happened there. That was one of the strangest results I've seen in years. So 2-1 for me also.
Yeah, I think the Lions played the Falcons though. I think you said I
Yeah.
think they played someone else. But the Cowboys, yeah, -12. I get where you were coming from because you probably thought, "Oh yeah, the real Cardinals showed themselves in that second half against the Giants and the Cowboys look great, but this is a one step backwards type of one step backwards type of result for the Cowboys. Yeah, that gets fans being like, "Oh boy, here we go again," like losing a game they shouldn't have. But yeah, go on.
Yep. So on the year, the challenges so far are 5-4. I'm 6-3. Two good starts here. So where are you guys going here? We're gonna do some picks here. Martino as the guest. You can go first. So where are you going with pick number one?
Yeah, so we have the Bengals this week. The Titans, it's really just about the Titans in this one. The Titans have looked awful. Derrick Henry had a little bit of a turf toe. Ball could not move at all. We know Cleveland's been a fantastic defense a couple weeks in. So I understand where people are coming from. This one's also on the road against Tennessee. I just think this team is sort of fading at this point. They don't have many options at wide receiver. I think that missing of AJ Brown is looming larger. DeAndre Hopkins isn't that type of difference maker like they hoped. I think the Bengals, after more rest for Joe Burrow, are going to look better. Get T. Higgins going. Jamar Chase looked a lot better this past week as well. So I have them at, I believe, were -2.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. Obviously, this feels like last week was like, okay, we stopped the bleeding. Now Cincinnati's gonna start taking off here. Tennessee's not a good football team. I think it's gonna be a spot where they win pretty easily.
Yeah, I really am not big on Tennessee, but please, Derrick Henry, I just need you to have a good game instead of 2 points that he had last week.
All right, so that's pick number one. Where are you going with pick two?
Yeah, pick two. Taking another team from the same game that we were just discussing before, and I'm taking the Rams. I think they were +1. They're going into Indy. Indy snuck away with the victory against Baltimore. That one should have been done. It was a terrible no penalty call for the Ravens. Colts end up getting back the ball. Minshew, we know, Ken Ball. There was a lot of players missing for the Baltimore Ravens at that point. The Rams' offensive line isn't that great, but I can trust Stafford inside of a dome, better weather for himself to do better in that sense. And again, the Colts aren't that fantastic. I think they do have some talent on offense. No Jonathan Taylor still, as we know. That Zach Moss one touchdown, I don't know if you saw that, was incredible, by the way, that catch he had. I just don't think it's a repeatable performance. It might be a trap considering the spread with this, but I do like the Rams +1.
I get the logic of that too. Plus, you remember last week was a really weird weather game in Baltimore too, with the remnants of the tropical storm. So that also I think aided the Colts last week.
Yeah, that hurt a lot of teams as well. And oddly enough, you would think that's a game the Ravens win with a guy like Justin Tucker. But yeah, it was just a really strange event. But what can you do when so many players are missing like that? I think it was an outlier.
All right, where are you going with your last pick of the week? Pick three.
Yeah, just sticking it to what we were talking about earlier. The Chiefs are absolutely going to dominate the Jets. I actually don't see why this line or spread is -8.5 last time I checked. I'm not sure if that changed. Or -9.5, sorry. So with that, I think that the spread in the Cowboys Cardinals game was crazier than this one. I know people want to respect the Jets defense. I don't think that matters when you turn over the ball that much, and that's a high octane offense. We're not talking about the Bills where Josh Allen turns it over a bunch. Mahomes doesn't turn it over like that. And then also on top of it, they're not that weak of an offense. If there's enough weapons that they do have, especially yards after the catch, there's a lot of playmakers on Kansas City. We don't have anyone that can stop Travis Kelce like that. No one in the NFL really does. I think they're going to cook. I think Taylor Swift is just going to be on the big screen more times than the Jets will be on points total. So they show Taylor Swift over 10 times. It's going to be higher than the Jets point total in this one. I would be very surprised. I think it's going to be field goals at best for the Jets. I don't see them moving the ball much. What do you hope for, I guess, in this, if you're a Jets backer, is that Zach finally just starts slinging it. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't really handicap him to this. But it's bad. It's going to be a disaster. I think the Chiefs actually win by closer to 2 touchdowns than they do to 1.
Yeah, I saw this number. I was surprised it was this low. I thought they were sure the Chiefs would have been double-digit favorites heading this game.
There's no major injuries for the Chiefs right now. Again, like Kelsey's still coming back and looks better each week from that initial injury that kept him out on Thursday Night Football against the Lions. Like you really just wonder, like Pacheco, another game as well. If you want to look at some props, he's returning back home, so that's a Rutgers guy. Always kind of look for those angles as well. I know that's separate from the spread, but yeah, man. I mean, listen, the Chiefs, as you mentioned, like the Bengals taking off. I think this is another game that the Chiefs feel really good about themselves. Their offense was fantastic. Their defense looked a lot better. Chris Jones aging well. But yeah, man. Listen, I don't have faith in the Jets getting to Mahomes in time for a lot of these things, and if he gets the ball out quick, I mean, guys like Tony are going to pick up huge yardage. Kelsey over the middle. It's going to be bad.
Yep. So your picks on the board. I'm up now. Pick number one. I'm going to take the Ravens to bounce back here, getting 3 on the road in Cleveland. I don't think the Browns' offense is good enough to compete with Baltimore. Their defense is good, but I think this is a overreaction to last week of the bad weather and the injuries Baltimore has. I like what the Ravens are doing. I feel like they have a good system in place. Lamar's getting more comfortable in the offense every week. I love the fact that they're getting underdogs here. I think it's a big motivating factor here. I think they bounce back, get a big win. So I'll take the Ravens getting 3 on the road.
Yeah, that one's going to be a close one. I just don't know if I can trust them if they're not like getting that many more offensive players back. If the Ravens get the players that they need back on offense, I'm not saying like all 7 of them, but at least more than half, especially the offensive line. I like that bet.
All right, that's pick 1. Pick 2, I'm taking a home dog here. Taking the Panthers getting 4 against the Vikings here. And we've seen the way the Vikings are playing. Their defense is not that good. Justin Jefferson's ripping the defense on social media here. They're panicking. They're struggling here. How they're favored by more than a field goal over anybody, especially on the road, is mind-boggling me. The Panthers look more confident last week with Andy Dalton under center. I'm probably going to go with them again to give Bryce Young more time to get healthy here. I'll take the points easily. I think the Vikings win. It's not by more than 3. It's been their trend for the last year and a half. So I'll take the points of Carolina, pick 2.
Yeah. Again, the Panthers, even if they do elect to go to Andy Dalton, like he can't just like the way the game's going to be managed. You're not going to worry about as many turnovers as Bryce would maybe have. Totally different types of quarterbacks, but I don't know how anyone could have faith in the Vikings right now.
That's pick 2. Pick 3, I'm going back to the Cowboys again. They're laying 6.5 against New England at home here. We watched New England last week. New England is not very good. Their offensive line is not very good. Dallas's front is ferocious here. I think this is another overreaction line to what they did in Arizona here. They're not going to put up 2 stink bombs in a row. They're home laying less than a touchdown here. New England was very fortunate to win last week. They had 3 chances to seal the Jet game. They could not. It's a much higher class of football team. They're going to get blown out. So give me the Cowboys laying 6.5, pick 3.
Yeah, Pats just aren't a good football team, and everyone is just kind of holding on that Belichick is at the helm for this. But you're right. Even Belichick, I know, was a backhanded comment to the Jets, but his point was we can't put up 15 points against another team in the NFL because they won't let us win. So more of the same there, and especially with the way CeeDee Lamb is playing. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is really looking like a top 5 wide receiver. He's just an incredible player. So kudos to them. And I think Tony Pollard as well looks fantastic. The Cowboys always do a great job of replenishing running backs. I don't think the Pats are going to have a good time. This defense is also overrated. Could be a little bit similar to the issue with the Jets and Zach Wilson. You don't have a great quarterback, but gotta say, man, yeah, Cowboys is a good pick.
All right, so to reset the picks of the week here. Martino's taking the Bengals laying the 2 against the Titans on the road. The Chiefs laying 9.5 at MetLife on Sunday night with Taylor Swift in attendance. And the Rams getting a point on the road against the Colts. I'm taking the Ravens a 3-point road dog against Cleveland. The Panthers 4-point home dogs against the Minnesota Vikings. And the Cowboys laying 6.5 at home against New England here. So those are your picks for week 4 here on the podcast. Still working on my week 5 guess. I'm not announcing that just yet, but I will say I am unfortunately out of the knockout pool this week because of the Jacksonville Jaguars not showing up against the Texans.
It's always that type of weird interdivisional game where you think it seemed like the Jaguars has that one sealed up against a rookie quarterback, and CJ Stroud looked really good, man. He looked really good. So good for the Texans. They do a better job, a franchise made 25 years ago, than the Jets at finding a quarterback. It's just that's all I look at it through in the scope of the NFL these days. How is everybody else finding better quarterbacks except us? But yeah, I mean that's a rough one. I never done a survival pool. I unfortunately didn't get in one this year either, so that sucks. You're probably not alone though, so maybe that'll make you feel better.
Yeah, for me, it was one where I was sitting and looking at like, okay, they lose a tight one at home. They have a team coming in that's not very good at home. They're going to bounce back and win. I'm like, I'm going to try and save the Chiefs for later in the season. And of course, I get blown up my face.
Hey man, I mean, listen, that's why they call it survivor pool, and a lot of them reset quickly. So, I mean, yeah, better luck next time, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll see if I have better luck next year, Martino. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media. How can they do that?
Yeah, they could just tune in at Martino Puccio YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well if you're interested in that stuff. Just a lot of short form video content and stuff like that. Probably gonna have to talk soon on the Mets. I just don't have it in me to discuss any Jet stuff. It's just I love you and that's why I'm here, but I'm done with it. I'm drained energy wise.